is back into it in Chester. Here's El Senior. Yes! Yes!
The center back, Jacob Glesnes,
He's going for it.
Oh my goal! What a goal!
And that will do it. One of the best comebacks in recent years. 3 unanswered by the Union. And they go into the Gold Cup break, winning it 3-2.
Hello and welcome to the Free Kick Podcast. My name is Todd. And man, that is so fitting that Dave Leno had the last call in the intro, because that is the call from the New York Red Bulls versus Philadelphia Union game in 2019, I believe it was. And no, it was not a comeback victory for the Philadelphia Union tonight against the New York Red Bulls. They see it out. The 123rd minute, Jacob Glesnes scores a worldie of a goal. We are live right now on Twitter Spaces, so I mean, whenever people join in, you know, we'll go ahead and just talk for as long as people stay in this thing for. Hopefully we get a lot of people joining in, because I mean, who doesn't want to talk about that game against the New York Red Bulls? And yeah, those guys still probably aren't our rivals, right? But those kind of games are how you produce rivalries, I would imagine. But right away, I know we had Michael Van Zant, who you guys should remember being on this podcast multiple times for our trivia contest, and then Ricky Zelfro. You guys have heard him multiple times, trivia show. Both of these guys won the trivia show. Ricky won it this year, Michael won it last year, and these guys put up a great show in the trivia show, and I can't see why either one of these guys won't be in the final this year when we do it. But whichever one of you guys want to go first, Michael or Ricky, it does not matter to me. Just what a game it was against the New York Red Bulls, and I'm surprised I can even talk, because when that goal went in by Glesnes, it's as loud as I've ever heard it in Subaru Park. But like I said, whichever one of you guys, Ricky, Michael, go ahead. You guys can speak first. And for people joining, just request the speak button. Now, I will say, if you guys are on your computer, actually, I don't even know if you can do spaces on the computer. Maybe not. But if you are on your computer, you can't speak from the computer. You can only speak while you're on your phone. So like I said, Michael, Ricky, whichever one of you guys want to go first, go ahead, man.
Yeah, I mean, I think like everybody else right now, a little bit, I guess, lost for words is the thing. I think, like, I don't know about you, Todd or Ricky. I thought this would be a game that we would have won. I didn't think it would almost mirror 2019 to the degree of, like, probably those being the two best games, and those being both first round games against the Red Bulls in our history. It's wild. And now, you know, I'm looking forward to watching Orlando, Nashville, seeing who we get. I don't know about you guys. I would rather have Orlando than Nashville. And I'm hoping we get Montero back. Powell did a very admirable job. So I would like, but I would like to see Mbaizo back, because he adds that extra offensive pump. But yeah, there's a few negative spots for sure we'll get into. But boy, I agree with you. That atmosphere is electric, and if you can't get into MLS after that, I don't know what can get you into it.
I know, right? A center back scoring a goal from what looked like he was between 25, 30 yards out, hits it on the volley. I mean, an unbelievable strike. But it's a good point you brought up about Jamir Montero, Olivier Mbaizo, hopefully that they would be back. So I don't know how many people have saw this on Twitter yet, but in the press conference, Jim Curtin did give an update, or as much as an update as he could, on Jamir Montero and Olivier Mbaizo. And this is what Jim Curtin had to say.
Yeah, thanks, Amanda. First topic I'll address right off the bat and say Olivier Mbaizo, Jamir Montero. We're in the league health and safety protocols. So, again, nobody wanted to be on the field more than them, but obviously their absence was missed. We missed them in a big way. But at the same time now, I hope everyone can respect the rules of the league and the privacy issues, and kind of squash that right now and not have any really further questions about it, because I can't talk about it. So,
yeah, so I mean, it sounds like it sounds like from what Jim said, it sounds like Bizo and Montero potentially probably have COVID. And they were asked, well, when did you find out? A little bit later in the press conference. And yeah, Jim Curtin wasn't having it. I mean, he said, you guys just heard, he said, yeah, this is going to be my only update I give. I can't talk about their player safety. And yeah, it sucks that Jameer Montero, Bizo weren't able to play. And I don't know. Bizo came in as a substitute for Cameroon in the last game. And Jim Curtin and the team weren't too happy with that because there was a lot of minutes played that Bizo had that they weren't expecting him to play for Cameroon. And so potentially Powell was the one who was going to get the start if Bizo and Montero, if they were cleared to play. But it's not a good thing to hear Jim Curtin say, yeah, just following the health and safety protocol by MLS. And hopefully these guys can come back soon. But very, very impressive performance by Alvis Powell tonight. I mean, look, this is a guy who has a team option at the end of the season, I believe it is, and will the Union pick it up? I mean, I don't see why not. When he was only making, I believe, $84,000 this year, and he's an MLS veteran and a starting right back for the Jamaican national team, and I don't see how you don't pick up that option. And then you look at the rumors over the summertime where a Ligue 1 team was interested in Bizo. I mean, I feel like you can afford to trade away Bizo, and Alvis Powell showed why. Yeah, look, I can still do a starting job in the team for a team in MLS, whether that's the Union or whether it's another team. And I'm just really, really impressed with the job that Alvis Powell did offensively and defensively. And then you talked about, I would rather have Orlando City than Nashville. Hey, look, I agree with you 100% there, Michael, because if we play Nashville, they're a strong defensive team, just like New York Red Bulls. And if we have to play Nashville, we saw what happened when we played them at Subaru Park about a month ago. That game ended 1-0 to the Philadelphia Union because of a penalty kick to Kasper Schmeichel. It's going to be a hard-fought defensive game if we play Nashville again, where if we play Orlando City, I think that game is going to be opened up a lot more than what we saw tonight against the New York Red Bulls. Now, I know when the extra time happened, I know that game opened up like crazy, but yeah, I would much rather play against Orlando City than Nashville. And just like all the other Union fans, I'm sure we're all going to be watching that game closely on Tuesday. And the one thing I do want to bring up about that game is the Philadelphia Union have 7 days rest now, and whoever they play out of Orlando City or Nashville, they're only going to have 4 days of rest. Now, how much of a difference will that make? Who knows, but it is good to see the Philadelphia Union have some rest, especially when you have a player like Daniel Gazdag who played all 120 minutes of the game tonight, where he's pushing 5,000 minutes this last calendar year playing, and that's a lot of wear and tear in your legs, and fingers crossed that he can stay healthy. But yeah, he looked excellent tonight, and so many emotions right now. Still, we're 2 hours removed from the game, just unbelievable. Good, Ricky.
My first thought was I honestly don't really think that tonight was the best performance that we've seen from Alvis Powell. Honestly, his touch was a little bit lacking, I felt. And honestly, if Mbaizo's out next weekend too, due to COVID, I would not be upset if Harriel started on the right. Especially because he's looked pretty good in the 2 games that he's played. And then towards the end of the season, they had him come on a few games as a substitute, and when Powell was injured. I also think with our discussions recently about the upcoming expansion draft and who we're covering and who we're not, the idea of bringing Powell in is so you have a starter in those windows that you have potential games in, because this year we were in CCL, so we had 2 games during the international windows, whereas like we originally weren't going to have those games. So it was nice to have that guy brought in, but then he wasn't there anyways because he was also with Jamaica. So Harriel ended up starting anyways.
And to that point, Ricky, real quick, I think I value Powell maybe a little bit more than you do, but at the same time, I do see him as kind of that very serviceable guy off the bench that gives you that depth that you need. Like, this was the perfect example of that, like the copy paste example. Like, you needed him to step up. I think he did. do a serviceable job. Like you said, some of the passes he did weren't the crispest, but he did have some good defensive plays in there as well. So I would be fine if they picked up the option just for depth, but at the same time, I would be hesitant if Mbaizo moved if he would be the everyday starter.
Honestly, I thought, like, looking at the lineup when they announced Bizo and Montero are out, I thought Alves made the most sense at right back. I think throwing in Harriel on the first, like his fourth career start is in a playoff game. It's a little bit ridiculous of an attempt. Like a player like Paxton Aronson, this is what, game number 15 to 20. It's his start number, like 8 of the season or whatever. I felt when I feel like not having Montero in this game specifically was not as technically big a loss because Aronson is capable in a ways that, like, say Martinez is out for this game. He comes back from Venezuela. He gets COVID. He can't play. That's probably a bigger loss because that means we're moving Leon there and we have Jack come in. Jack can pass the ball, but the thing I noticed after, like with Jack too, is when he subbed on, it seemed kind of like Red Bull noticed that he was not as defensively capable as Leon, which, I mean, is really obvious. But every time they pass the ball out there, Jack's taken like 8 steps to get anywhere near the ball. And this was my other thing with Powell. Like, I think he was pretty solid defensively, but by the time you're reaching that the first half of extra time, and they had Tolkien subbed on late in the second half, I think, or like beginning of, like, really late in the game. And then Tolkien's coming down that left wing, and, like, as bad as his hair color is, his haircut is, Tolkien is probably the scariest player on that team to me. Honestly, him and Caden Clark coming on, I was like, I'm a little bit worried because those are the 2 players on Red Bulls that I think can do something. It was really weird to me that Tolkien didn't start. But we only had to see that hairdo for like 40 minutes. That was probably better for us. The other thought I had is Todd, after the game, mentioned that I guess Jim said he wanted to sub on Ilsinho, but Noonan said no. And I thought they announced that Montero and Mbaizo were out, that Ilsinho was just like a scare tactic. And then he's actually on the bench today. And I was just kind of like, the fact that you didn't end up subbing him in. And then the other fact is he wanted to sub him on as a right wing back again, which the one time he did that, you're putting Ilsinho like 60 yards away from the goal, and that's the worst place to have a player that is not, great at tracking back, is trying to do skill moves to get through people. And that was a weird thing that Todd brought up. I don't know. Everybody in here might not have heard that factoid or might not have been aware of that, but I think it's something that Jim must have said after the game. And really just, I was confused. If you're going to have Ilsinho on the bench to be an option, to be a bullet, as he called it, why would you ever reconsider putting him at right wing back and bring him in? Even, especially at that point, it's like we scored in the 120th +3. Like, if you were going to bring Ilsinho on as right wing back in a 0-0 game, that sounds like a straight trip to John Tolkien getting past Ilsinho on the right wing, and he was getting past Elvis Powell. My only other thoughts were Casper should not start the next round. Probably not even see the field.
Agreed.
He is a cone on the field. The sad news is Corey Burke gets hurt with like 5 minutes to go, which makes me think there's a good chance Corey Burke will not be available next weekend. And the only good thing about this is maybe we go back to the 4-4-2 for that game. We'll be either playing Nashville or Orlando. I think in both cases that would be a better formation to use against them. I think maybe playing at New England in a potential final, you probably could use this 4-2-3-1 again. But I felt it was kind of weird that we started out with the 4-2-3-1 in this game when clearly Santos had 40 minutes in him. Burke seemed to have less minutes in him, though he came back before Santos came back. That was a little bit weird. Santos coming on earlier than Burke. I figured Casper was an absolute waste of space for 45 minutes and then managed to stay on the field for another 30 minutes. And when he passed that ball, or Sergio passed that ball to him and he just skied it from like five yards, maybe, I was like, if Jim doesn't sub it out in like the next 3 minutes, this is a ridiculous a move for this team. Yeah, I just really wish we could find a forward.
Well, there are reports out there that the Philadelphia Union were in Ecuador last week prior to that. Nobody really said exactly when. Scouting a potential Ecuadorian striker whose contract expires at the end of this December. So not going to be a DP signing, and maybe that's a new guy. Maybe he replaces Davo, but we can talk about that later. I mean, man, so much that you brought up there that is worth talking about. Look, Sergio Santos went 59 minutes tonight, and a little bit surprising that Sergio didn't start because midweek Jim Curtin said that Sergio Santos and El Sino in his press conference were both available for this game, that they would be able to play significant roles. And Sergio Santos went 59 minutes, and here I am already losing my voice. I knew it was coming, right? When you're in that stadium for 120 minutes screaming on the top of your lungs. Oh, man, it's enjoyable, but trying to do a podcast right after that, it's not a great combination. But again, just a great game like that where you just have so many emotions, you've got to talk about it. And for people that are joining, yeah, feel free. If you guys want to bring up anything, just hit that mic feature, and I'll go ahead and give you guys the chance to talk. But, oh, man, Kasper Schmeichel had one really good chance from Sergio Santos. And I thought Sergio Santos played great in his 59 minutes. I mean, played that great ball into Corey Burke, played that great ball into Kasper Schmeichel, and Sergio even had a chance to score tonight. And neither one of our strikers scored tonight. It had to be a center back, right? And if you question who can score on this team, Jacob Glesnes is not one of those players that you question, because it feels like whenever Jacob Glesnes gets a chance to shoot, he's always putting that ball on frame. And this is what Jacob Glesnes had to say after the game, after he scored his goal.
The right place in the right moment, and I had a really good first touch that laid up to the volley, to the goal. So, yeah, it was amazing, and I couldn't understand that I had scored that goal, but I just saw around me like all the people that were so happy, and I didn't know what I should do when I was celebrating, so I was just running around like a clown, should I say. I was so happy.
Of course he was happy, right? And if you guys heard a little bit of background noise, Jacob Glesnes actually took his son into the press conference, so it was funny watching that. Jacob's son's trying to open up snacks, eat snacks and everything, and Jacob's like, well, I'm trying to do my job, talk to media. But just what a goal it was, what a celebration it was, and Jim Curtin even admitted after the game that, yeah, he blacked out in that moment, just, that whole moment, just couldn't believe it, and he apologized for running onto the field maybe a little bit too long for MLS's liking, but Jim's right. When you score that late of a goal, you score a volley, you get that volley from your center back. I mean, you can't write that stuff up, and it's funny always listening to the chants. I mean, Ricky, you saw all 10 of us down in Atlanta when Jacob Glesnes scored that goal, 30 yards out, and just completely silenced the crowd. Well, did not silence the crowd tonight. The fans went crazy. Jacob Glesnes said, yeah, I blocked out. I don't really remember the moment. Jim Curtin didn't remember the moment, and just what a goal.
Todd, I had two more thoughts of that now that you're talking about the strikers not scoring any goals. Honestly, I don't, it felt like for that 15, 20 minutes before Santos even came on that it was so clear that the Red Bulls backline were so lacking the pace to keep up with anybody that was slightly faster than Gazdag, because Gazdag was getting past them towards the towards that end, like the 60th minute. Like he had two like chances, or not like chances, but he had two opportunities on the ball where he was running past the defenders, and I was just like, man, if this is Sergio or Corey Burke, we have an actual chance. And it was just like, I know I talk a lot about how like disinterested I am at Casper at this point as a striker, but there was two or three balls that were like put for him to like run after, and like he's getting beat to the ball by like Gutman and whoever the center backs are for the Red Bulls, where I could not name a single like player on the back line outside of Gutman, because it's so clear that that bald guy, who is apparently like 24 years old, looks like a 40-year-old. And the only other player on the Red Bulls outside of Tolkien and Clark I can name is Drew Yearwood, because every time he elbows a dude in the face. It's like the fourth time this season he's like, I think it was Paxton this game, where it's like, I feel like you're more fit to play like a linebacker in an NFL game than play a center defensive midfielder in a MLS game. And it just like, it confuses me sometimes with Jim's subs, where it's like, oh, our striker for the whole first half is like getting through balls in on a counterattack and he can't catch up to them. But let's wait 20 minutes and maybe he'll catch up to one of these before I sub on Sergio or I sub on Corey Burke. And I think the later the game got, we had 4 or 5 chances late in the second half where it was just like Santos runs past, passes it into Casper, Corey gets past their defense, passes into Santos. And it was just, I get why you do, when we did, remember the Ilsinho year where we would just like, we'd run 4-4-2 for 60 minutes, switch to a 4-2-3-1, Ilsinho would run on tired legs. I feel like that we still sort of do that thing specifically against the Red Bulls, but just with a different formation. And we ended up going to the 4-4-2 at the end of the game. And it was like so clear that this team does a little bit better in that formation. But at the same time, I feel like I understand when he goes to the 4-2-3-1 when we don't have any other strikers. Because honestly, at this point, half of the time, even when there's a striker on the field, we don't have any strikers. If I'm an opposing fan, I'm more worried about Paxton Aronson doing something. I'm more worried about Jamiro Montero doing something. And you could, at this point, I felt like at the end of the towards the end before Casper subs off, it's like, if I'm opposing defender, I'm not even gonna attempt to cover Casper, because he's not doing anything unless it's from the penalty spot. And as I think about this upcoming next round, Nashville or Orlando, we didn't play Nashville with Hani Mukhtar. We all have to remember this. We beat them 1-0 without their best player, their MVP. I think we can still, in a game against Nashville, you can still hope to play very defensive. The problem is when I think of a team like Orlando, I would much rather play Orlando, but I'm a little bit more worried about Orlando on an attacking side of things, because Daryl Dike is a big man. Nani is like one of those players that, even though he's a little bit older now, this could be his last season. You kind of expect players like that to do something. Like when Zlatan's in the league, you kind of expect him to do something. The team might not be great, but in a do or go home matchup, you never know what to expect from a player like that, because they have the skill. It's not all there anymore like it used to be. It's like, yeah, I think I've ran out of things to say.
No, you're good. You're good. So I actually see that the guys from MLS Gone Wild are in here. I invited them to speak because there's something that I want to bring them up. I'm not sure if it's Blem or Mike. If they don't accept it, it's cool. Because I want to ask them something when they had Liam Flock on the show. But yeah, I mean,
Can I jump in?
Yeah, go ahead, Michael. Go ahead. Save my voice. You guys do all the speaking. I'll host it. You guys do all the talking. Go for it.
Yeah, no, I just wanted the piggyback on two things Ricky said. The first, like I was saying, that there's a lot of parallels between our first playoff win against the Red Bulls and the one that just happened, and another one with Casper is that he was hurt and had that injury. I think it was to his foot, and he's had injuries before that. Well, clearly that's kind of made his timeline with us getting here a little bit longer, and he's had injuries since. But those injuries and that one maybe in particular, I think it's just slowed him down to a point where he was never a speedster to begin with, and that was clear that that's really something that's missing. It's not that we need like a Fafa type of speed, but we just need like somebody that can, like what Ricky was saying, like hit the spots where Gazdag's running. It isn't just him. And another point, what Ricky was saying in terms of Nashville, their defense with the, to me, probably going to be 2-time defender of the year, back to back with Walker Zimmerman. He would probably just be able to like put a nightcap on right now with Casper. Like we really do need to mix it up, and it does seem like it's going to have to come from our non-striker levels. The good thing is we're not having to talk right now about the offseason looking for a striker, and we get to continue on, but it's definitely going to be an issue when the offseason comes.
All right, so what happens if Jacob Glesnes doesn't score that goal and we go into penalties? How are you guys feeling? Because myself, I mean, we've seen too many heartache in Subaru Park. I guess what PPL Stadium it was before Talent Energy, and then Subaru Park now, where we lost some penalties. We've seen plenty of missed penalties in that stadium over the years. I mean, look, Jamil Montero missed one against Club America. Not that we have to speak about that game, but how do you guys feel if we wouldn't went into penalties? Because I feel like Corey Burke took that knock at the end of the game. Corey Burke probably isn't taking a penalty, but you have him on the field because you know that, okay, he's one of our only strikers out there, and he's probably going to take a penalty, but now that he's hurt, he's probably not taking a penalty. So how do you guys feel that the Union would have done penalties?
I feel like it potentially a problem because we've had this like look at that 2019 season, the Ilsinho game.
Mm-hmm.
The third goal comes from a penalty that's saved. Like that year we had Marco Fabian take penalties. He was like 2 for 4. Jamiro was like 2 for 4. And it's just maybe Andre. And the other thing, we subbed out Andre in a Gold Cup final.
Oh God.
For John McCarthy, because I feel perfectly fine about Andre and goal on penalties. He saved that one earlier in the season, and maybe against Red Bull actually. I don't know if that was the game. And I just feel like looking at the players that are on the field at that point, like Corey can't take a penalty at this point. Jim, I think, said that after the game. He would have been in the 5 that you're looking at. I think looking at who's on the field, like Gazdag, I guess, probably. He's the only person that's taken a penalty this year and hit every penalty, right? Kai in preseason had that penalty that he either completely missed the goal or was saved. And I remember being like, let's never do that again. Apparently, I think it was Matt DeGeorge said something about apparently Andre's really good at penalties. Let's just have Andre Blake do everything, honestly. I feel like I would have been pretty confident if I was able to pick who the penalty kick takers were. I would have thrown Glesnes there.
Oh yeah.
Jack Elliott. Maybe not Jack Elliott now that I think about it. He is half English. Sorry, Todd. Maybe, you know what? Ali's off at that point. I think Bueno probably can take a penalty. He seems like a guy that can take a penalty. Yeah. And then I'm putting Martinez in, and I'm telling him, you're Panenka. You're just going to Panenka this. I don't care if it misses completely. I don't care if it gets saved. If we're going for it, Martinez is hitting a Panenka.
Yeah, and I think when my thoughts were if it was going to PKs, which I at that point thought it was, I can't bet against Andre Blake. I think one of the other saves I remember was against Toronto, a penalty kick at Subaru Park. He is very good, I think, in terms of a stopper when it comes to penalty kicks. It's such a niche thing. It's such a 50-50 thing, but his guesses are normally correct. He just kind of has really great reflexes as well. So I can't bet against him. The other side of the coin is very one that I don't want to look at that much because you're right. There isn't a lot of options there. I agree with you. Gazdag would have been one. Kai Bueno at that point. It's just upsetting that a lot of the guys there were either not there at all, like I would have had Montero take one, or were already subbed off. So it was very worrisome. And also, our old buddy Cornell, he was having a game, and I when a goalkeeper's hot, and Blake had a great save, but Cornell had to make a few. I was very worried about going in when one guy's better than the other.
I don't know if you guys watched the game where the Red Bulls played somebody, and at the end of regulation, the other team won a penalty. Cornell saved it. Cornell was off his line, so they made him retake the penalty.
It was against Montreal.
He saved it a second time. They called it back for a second retake, for a third retake, and then they hit it on the third one. And I'm just like, that sounds like a bad time. And then do they retake penalties and penalty shootout? Is it the goalie's off the line? Because I feel like we could have been there for like 3 hours.
Yeah, because remember it happened last year between New York City and Orlando, where what's his name? The goalkeeper for Orlando City was off his line. He got a red card.
Oh, that's what he got the yellow card for.
Yeah.
And then
so
Schlegel had to do it.
Yeah, exactly. But I see.
I completely forgot about that.
Yeah. So would have been
and
interesting.
he's an underrated keeper in my opinion too, Cornell. I know it didn't work out here because we have a guy who should get a statue in my opinion, but he's sneaky good.
Surprisingly, only 2 saves for Cornell tonight against Philadelphia Union. But I see the man who probably has no voice, just like the rest of us, Mr. Jarrett Nisley. Back-to-back episodes now, Jarrett, that you've appeared on the podcast. How you feeling, man?
I don't know what I just witnessed. I just got to my girlfriend's maybe probably close to 30 minutes now, and I am just in complete shock. And I'm sure my voice sounds terrible right now. I said this on Twitter, but I don't know how this game managed to top 2019. It wasn't the same 7-goal thriller that we had and the come from behind, but just the manner in which that took. And you may have already touched on this, but that was the latest goal scored in all MLS competition ever.
We have not. So that's good news to have.
Yeah, so 123rd plus is the latest in MLS playoffs and MLS as a whole. I know you guys were already talking about PKs, but at that point in the game, I was already just all right, I'm gonna have to sit through my first ever penalty shootout, and while I'm at the game. And I was I don't know how this is going to go. I thought it was a wrap. I was ready for the whistle to come at any time. And then Glesnes happened. I'm sure for those of you who weren't there, I don't know if you were able to get a grasp on TV what the noise was like in that stadium. The place just absolutely erupted. Several of the capos were on the ground. We did not know what to do with ourselves. I don't know how to process what happened. It was the most beautiful chaos thing ever.
You guys can all thank me though, because he always scores bangers when I'm there. Just saying.
That's true.
You better be there next weekend then.
Oh, I have no life.
But and it's shocking to me too that it felt literally like a stadium of 50 or 60,000 to Jared's point. Mm-hmm. The level, the passion. I don't even remember it that much when we got the winning goal in 19. It's just great to see it. It really makes you almost bring a tear to your eye when you've gone through those years where you couldn't give away tickets, and you're like seeing like maybe 10,000 at best there, and now to celebrate this and gone through the rough times, and it's incredible.
And feel free, anybody that's joining in, if you guys want to speak, go ahead and hit that request to speak, and we'll bring you in here. But yeah, that atmosphere. I mean, look, Jared, you and I talked last episode where we talked about the atmosphere against Club America. We talked about the atmosphere in 2019 against the Red Bull in the 7-game thriller. In a game that we knew was going to be tough, where it was going to be two hard defenses tonight, to see this game going to extra time, the weather, I feel like we've had some games in the past where, we've won those games, but it's been cold, and so people aren't at their best cheering and everything. But the atmosphere that Keystone State Ultras and the Sons of Ben created tonight, like you guys said, it felt like there was 60,000 people in the stadium tonight, and it has to. Look, we talked about it last episode too, Jared. The atmosphere we create definitely plays an impact on what happens on the field, and just as soon as that ball went in, that's probably a moment that none of us are ever going to forget, and it's so fitting that it was Jacob Glesnes, right? We talked about earlier how we don't have a striker that we're confident in right now, where the strikers aren't putting the ball in the back of the net. Casper, Sergio, Corey Burke all had chances, probably should have scored their chances, and it had to be Jacob Glesnes. And man, that atmosphere. We got this one out of the right way, and now we have an Eastern Conference semifinals at home. We've never had that before, and something tells me that atmosphere that we had tonight can be topped by what happens next week.
Yeah. Well, first off, let me just say we touched on tickets already. Ticket Watch, hashtag ticket Watch is back for another week. And I did take a glance already, and there are 3 sections of the River End that are in the light blue, which means they're almost sold out. And I think there's 6 sidelines that are almost sold out. So I definitely think that we're going to be even closer to a sellout this time round. And like, I don't know what to expect, because like we've never been in this position. We've never had a home semifinal game. So I just expect it to be electric. And like, the thing to touch on our point from the last podcast about the fans, it was really awesome to see, because like I turned to my girlfriend, and like at one point several times, and I said it's coming. Like, I think the fans started to feel that goal was coming. Like, there are games where you can feel that a goal is about to happen. And because that goal came off of a free kick. And like, but prior to that, we had several minutes of sustained pressure with a few corners. And like, I think the fan base, like, not even the Sons of Ben and Keystone State Ultras, but like the entire stadium started to feel what was about to happen. And that's the kind of moment that teams need to like get to that next level, to be like, yeah, like, like the fans know that we can do this, so we're going to go out and do it. Because like, I can guarantee you those players were tired. Like, you saw Ali was battling through that game. He was trying so hard to fight through. Like, I noticed maybe like 70 minutes in that he had picked up a knock, and I was like, Jim, you got to take him out now. I understand he's the captain and he's what drives this team, but he like he needs to come off. Like, every single person's legs were so tired. So like, the fact that the fans were able to stick behind this team and get him over the line, like, it was so good. I'm rambling at this point.
Hey, it's all good, man. Look, I'm happy people are actually joining Twitter Spaces, so I don't have to ramble on, because God knows I can do that. I've done it plenty of times in podcasts, but the only problem is, just like you, Jarrett, I'm sure just other people that are going to join and speak. Just 120 minutes, you have no voice, and just on a night like this, you got to talk, especially when it's not like 10 o'clock. You got to go ahead, do a Twitter Spaces, get your thoughts out there when it's fresh in your memory, and man. Can't believe it, man. Cannot believe it.
Time literally froze. Like, that goal happened in slow motion for me.
Can I pose a question to you guys?
Go ahead.
I hate to be that guy. Well, so if whoever we face and it doesn't end up in our way, is that the next monkey in our back, the 3 times in a row with the semifinals, or is it just the fact that we're going in the right direction that's going to be ignored? Or I shouldn't say ignored because I don't want it to make it seem like a big issue, but
I would think that you have to look at something like, oh, we've won in the first round of the playoffs twice now. We last year we had like technically we would have had a home field throughout the playoffs. I certainly think it's something to like think about moving forward, that if you lose next weekend and you haven't made it to the conference semifinals, it's an issue, and like a lot of people are going to be aware of it. But I think the fact just is that it's got to be really impressive if you're finishing like top 3 in the East over and over and over again. You're not going to do this every time. So yeah, we need to have the conversation. But like one team wins the Super Bowl every year. Only 2 teams are going to make it to the Eastern Conference Finals every year. And you look at a team like New England, they're only losing like 2 to 3 players. You look at a team like Orlando, they lose Nani and they probably are going to get better. You look at Nashville's losing nobody. They're not even eligible for the expansion draft, I'm pretty sure. Atlanta's going to get better. They have a lot of young players. They're probably going to sell Barco, somehow make money off of that, and use it to buy that guy that they just bought. You're looking at a lot of teams in the East who spend money, and the fact is we don't spend money. If we go out and buy a striker this offseason, not necessarily that Ecuadorian guy, and let's say we spend $3 million on a striker, right? We make playoffs next year. We finish top 3 in the East. We win in the first round, and we don't win again. I think at that point it becomes an issue that you continue to be in that position, because right now we just don't have that playoff guy that a lot of teams look for in like MLS. Like if you look at like Atlanta, they had multiple guys on that team that won. You look at Toronto, they had multiple guys on that team that won. If you're looking at the Philadelphia Union as they currently are, how many like real match winners do we think we have? Statistically, yeah. How is like your match winners on the Union are Andre Blake, who can't go out and score you goals. If Andre Blake's scoring your goals, we have another conversation to have. I think potentially, and we will probably see this more next weekend than we did this weekend. I think Gazdag has the potential to be that guy that in the playoffs just kind of goes off. He just has a lot on his legs. He flew back from Hungary. Well, I guess he might have flown back from Poland. No, whatever. Anyways, and I think you look at some of the other attacking players, like Aronson wasn't going to be the guy to score tonight. I don't think it was set up for him to score. I think Gazdag had a few chances. Santos had a few chances, at least to get towards the goal. Burke had a chance. Casper had a chance. Looking at all those guys, Santos is a great, speedy guy who probably scores about half of the times he's supposed to. Casper, no. Burke is a player that I really like as a Union fan. He's done a lot of stuff for us, but I'm 90% sure that we're going to leave him available in the expansion draft, because the hope is that we can get a better striker this offseason. Now, if you're telling me next year we buy a striker and we're in this and we lose again, or this year we don't win, I'm not as concerned. A lot of people wouldn't even have expected us to do this well this year. We lost 2 great players, and we finished slightly worse than we did last year.
So Michael asked a question. I'm going to go ahead and throw a question. Whoever was about to say something, I wasn't looking. I'm sorry. Go ahead, do your point after this. But okay, so look, let's say the Philadelphia Union, they go out. I know it's just 1 win so far in the playoffs, but let's say they go out and win, and we already know the whole thing. And we already know they don't have a proven goal scorer like last year Columbus did with Lucas Zelarayan playing out of his mind. Raul Ruidiaz always carries Seattle this time of the year. Let's say the Philadelphia Union go out and win without a proven goal scorer on this team. in your opinion, does that go down as one of the greatest victories for a team in MLS playoffs?
Maybe. Can I make my point with what Michael was saying? Yeah. This will be the last thing I say before I need to head out. But I think that what we've seen with this team is we've seen like taking steps forward. I mean, you go back to 2019, you get your first playoff win. You get the 2020, and you set yourself up to have like home playoffs the entire way through. Like, didn't happen, but we got there. 2021, we finished second after finishing in the semifinals of CCL, and we get our first home semifinal game. To me, that's progress. Is it the end-all, be-all, and like where we want to end up? No, obviously we want to keep going, but it's just like, I think to say that if you lose this next game, the season is a failure. I would not say that. Like, is it disappointing? Yes, but this team over the past 3 years has shown taking steps in the right direction, and it's really important. Like, obviously, like, in the city of Philadelphia, like we love success. Like we will be with our teams. We're ride or die with our teams. But it's like if you succeed, we'll love you forever. But I think anyone who responds negatively with a quote unquote early exit is reacting too quickly, and they need to take a step back, because again, like, this is brand new territory. Yes, we've made the semifinals before, so like you could argue that like it's not a step forward, but this is a home semifinal game. We did not set ourselves up for that in 2019, and that's the biggest difference for me.
Yeah, I think you and I talked about this after the podcast. Would 2021 be a successful season with reaching the CONCACAF Champions League? And we didn't know at the time if the Philadelphia Union were going to beat New York Red Bulls, and now that they have, now let's say Orlando or Nashville come in and beat us in the semifinals, and we get knocked out. I think tonight changed my mind from last week when we talked, Jarrett, where I think, yeah, this season is a success, especially when you look. We beat New York Red Bulls without Jamiro Monteiro and Olivier Bazo, two of our better players throughout this season. And to see Paxton Aronson come in and step up, see Alvis Powell, who's only played 6 or 7 games the whole season, step up when he needed to tonight. I mean, what a performance by the guys on the field.
Yeah, I mean, that's huge. Like, this is like the starting lineup knew that they were starting pretty much all week. So Paxton and Alvis came in maybe today, maybe like late last night, and like, hey, you're in. These guys are out, like, because like we got COVID problems. So like, I think that even speaks higher volumes to what we were able to do. Now, I wouldn't say Paxton had a huge impact on the game, but like, again, to be a 17-year-old and come into your first ever playoff game and hold your ground. Like Alvis, who has not been starting most of the year, has been behind Mbizo. Like, again, like, that's just to be able to pull that off is amazing. And more power to him. And I really hope that Miro and Mbizo get healthy and are ready to go by next week. I don't know. Like, regardless, the situation's out of our hands. But like, we wish them the best. But like, again, like, I think front to back with a few lapses in defense, it was just a very well put together performance.
I agree. And I know you said you had to get out of here. So before you get out of here, Jarrett, just want to say, just great job, you and all the other Capos in the Sons of Ben. I mean, just people feed off of you guys' energy. And yeah, I mean, what the players did on the field, I mean, yeah, fans feed off of that energy. But just again, I mean, we talked about it 10, 15 minutes ago. I mean, the atmosphere in that stadium, and I don't know how anybody's going to sleep tonight with just that noise ringing in our ears, because Subaru Park was a fortress tonight. And hopefully, next week, people can bring that same energy. And I know we talked a little bit about, well, maybe it wasn't the best time for people to buy tickets. We saw a lot of people selling tickets. You saw a lot of people just have things already planned so they can come to this game. But now we know Sunday, November 28th, we play Nashville or Orlando City. We don't have a time yet, but
5:30.
5:30. There we go. So I'm glad we have a time. So yeah, hopefully tonight looked pretty full. So hopefully people can bring that energy next week and make Subaru Park even louder than it was tonight.
Yeah, that'd be great. Yeah, I'll be keeping everyone updated on the ticket situation as much as I can. But again, thank you to everyone who helped make just an absolutely raucous environment tonight. You guys are awesome, and I can't wait to do it again next week.
Absolutely. Well, thanks for jumping in here, Jared, and I'm sure we'll speak soon. Hopefully your voice feels better, just like everybody else's. But I want to go back to a point that you brought up, Ricky, a while ago, and it just like totally slipped my mind. Elvis Powell, we talked about him offensively, 15 out of 36 completed passes, which is good for 42%. Not great going forward, but defensively it was great. At 8 out of 12 duels won on the ground, phenomenal. And then you look at his heat map where the farthest fourth that he would push was to the halfway line, and then he wouldn't go up any further than that. So that's something I think that Philadelphia Union missed tonight with Olivier Mbaizo, where Olivier Mbaizo is not afraid to go into the final third, where Powell, I'm sure it was instructions to say, hey, man, as far as you need to go is to the halfway point. And defensively, Elvis was great, but offensively, definitely want more from your right back.
Todd, did you see the stat at halftime from, it might have been Matt DeGeorge again, quoting one of the MLS guys, where the lowest amount of completed passes in a half of an MLS game this season was like 280. And in the first half of tonight's game, there was like 220. And I was just thinking during halftime, the whole time I was just like, this is just two teams that are built on like counterattacking, and neither of them are really like interested in doing much with the ball, and neither of them have committed to changing that for this game. Because usually two counterattacking teams, one of them comes out and does possession. The Union have done it before, where they're playing a team that they're clearly better than and they're going to control the ball. They have guys on the team that were here when we were a possession team. They have guys that are good on the ball. Montero, Bedoya, Martinez. Kai's pretty good on the ball. Anybody not named Leon Flock, good on the ball moving forward. So I thought it was like hilarious. It was like, oh, we're just going to head the ball around the midfield. There's going to be a lot of fouls. There's going to be a lot of, plucky play. But it seemed like at a certain point that both teams were fine with a 0-0 draw, go to penalties 120 minutes later. And then Glesnes just had different ideas.
All right, so I know I know he's your guy, and man, if I bring him up, then you might talk for an hour. But if you look at the bench, only Elsinio, Jack McGlynn, Quinn Sullivan, Corey Burke, Sergio Santos. Actually, that's a lot of offensive players, but I feel like Anthony Fontana is more offensive than Quinn Sullivan and Jack McGlynn, and a lot more offensive than 5 minutes of Elsinio. So against Orlando City, Nashville, you think there's a possibility that Anthony Fontana?
So when I told you I had two things I wanted to talk about, the one thing was Elsinio on the bench. Just seemed like a waste, especially if Jim's plan was to play him as right wing back. You have Nathan Harriel on the bench. Elsinio coming on is not going to do anything as a right wing back. If that's your plan, why? Montero's out. That means your backup on the bench at attacking midfield is who? And you're playing a 4-2-3-1 with Aronson and Aronson and Gazdag with no Fontana on the bench. Kind of just made zero sense. You had two strikers on the bench. You had two right midfielders on the bench and a left midfielder. And Elsinio, who your plan was to play him at right wing back, I think in this game that made zero sense. If Montero is out again next weekend and Elsinio makes the bench over Fontana, I'm just very confused, is my honest statement on that. And I think even in this game, the one thing we talked about was like Santos is getting out wide. He's passing it into Shabilko. there weren't a lot of shots in this game. A player like Fontana at least shoots the ball, you know. I'm kind of resigned, and the Anthony Fontana is probably not going to play again. Even if Montero's out again, Montero and Bizo are out for another week, say, I feel like Jim probably just keeps Ilsinho on the bench against either of those teams. I think potentially Fontana's more likely to be on the bench against Nashville than he is Orlando, because I think you plan against Nashville to have another 0-0 type game in a way more than you do against Orlando, because I think technically speaking, we are a better team than Orlando. I think technically speaking, we are a equal team to Nashville in most senses of the word. So if Walker Zimmerman scores a 5th-minute header off of a corner kick, right, you'd want more attacking players on the bench. And a conversation that I think we've had privately is that I think Bueno's kind of taken Quinn Sullivan's position as the backup right midfielder at this point, and that kind of puts it in a weird position where you have 2 backups at one position on the bench. And I think looking at tonight, that was kind of what he wanted to do with Ilsinho too. So you have 2 backup right backs, 2 backup right midfielders, no backup attacking midfielder. So either Gazdag or Aronson's going to play the whole 90 plus whatever, right? And if you had told me yesterday that, Montero can't play tomorrow and we're still playing the 4-2-3-1, and then also had told me Fontana wasn't going to be on the bench, I would be absolutely baffled, even though after 34 games this season, half of which Fontana was hurt for, half of which he was played at striker, and apparently still had the keys to the number 10, but we're not talking about other people's tweets tonight.
So I see Kyle has accepted the speak button. Kyle, man, how are you? Your thoughts on the game? Just get it all out there.
Well, I'm still in shock after that Glesnes goal. I mean, like you and I talked about there right at the end. I thought defensively we were where we need to be. Offensively, again, we joked we couldn't hit the backside of a barn to save our life. But that said, we created opportunities. And overall, Red Bulls are probably one of the hottest teams in the MLS right now. So you take that, we move on, and I'm happy from that. But again, I thought the atmosphere, and that's the thing, I thought the atmosphere tonight was probably the best atmosphere I've seen since I started going in 18. So a credit to everybody that was there tonight, because I think the team fed off of us so hard.
Yeah, I agree, and that's exactly what we talked about earlier when we had Jarrett, one of the Sons of Ben Capers, in here. It's crazy how I'm able to talk, and just like you guys are obviously speaking, and I don't know how any of us have a voice, but the atmosphere. I just hopefully people bring that same passion, energy that they had tonight and next week against Nashville or Orlando. I think they will, but Michael, you brought up a point for penalties that I forgot to even give my answer to it. I think Jacob Glesnes and Daniel Gazdag, and then after those two, I don't think I trust anybody else to take a penalty on this team. Corey Burke's probably not taking a penalty because of that knock that he took. Jesus Bruno, potentially. Jesus Martinez, El Brujo. I think, Ricky, you said you would let him take a penalty. I don't know, man. Look, we let him shoot from open field, and he always skies it. How do we know that he doesn't sky the ball in the penalty kick? So, I mean, if we wouldn't went into penalties, Jacob Glesnes and Daniel Gazdag are the only two that I trust. Maybe Jack McGlynn, maybe, but I don't like our chances going into penalties, Michael.
Yeah, it's something that I hate to like keep looking at the negative or the possible negative, but it's definitely something as we're going through the playoffs that it's a real possibility. We're a very defensive team. If we play another defensive team like Nashville, it very could well come down to penalties. Now, that being said, we'll probably be in a better state to take them with Montero, with Burke probably being 100%, with Sergio being on there, and Gazdag still there. I think we would still be in a better state, but at the same time, we're I don't think a penalty taking team that's a great threat. So it's a very, I think, minor kind of thing that's kind of at the back of the mind. But overall, though, looking into whoever we're playing next, that you have to feel that we have that shot, and with that atmosphere, we're definitely going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yeah, absolutely, and credit to New York Red Bulls too. I mean, I know it's nothing but high praise for the Philadelphia Union, but I thought the New York Red Bulls, look, I think most fans would tell you that they knew this game was going to be tight against the New York Red Bulls just because uh, they conceded 33 goals, I believe it was. Trying to go off the top of my head. I mean, that was tied for the fewest goals given up in MLS with Nashville, I want to say, and Seattle. Maybe I have the teams mixed up, but New York Red Bulls for sure conceded the fewest goals with two other teams, and you knew we were going to get a lot of block shots. You knew that neither one of these teams had clinical finishers in Klimala, Fabio, who I was surprised went off as early as he did. But look, New York Red Bulls had a chance to win this thing with Klimala, went 1-on-1 with Andre Blake. Andre Blake stood big. Now, it did look offsides to me, and I know the referee didn't wave his flag, let the play go on, so who knows if Klimala would have been offsides or not. But look, it doesn't matter. Andre Blake played until the whistle went and came up with a big save, and then Kyle Duncan, I believe it was, in the second half of stoppage and extra time, hit the post. And if that shot would have went in, I think all of us are sitting here having a different conversation here. We're going to be upset because the New York Red Bulls probably go away with a 1-0 victory, not the Philadelphia Union, if Kyle Duncan shot went in. But like we talked about earlier, Jim Curtin wanted to bring in Elsinho as a right wing back, and Pat Noonan said no, absolutely not, because the game is being played way too narrow. Elsinho is not going to give you anything, and so Elsinho didn't come on. But if the Philadelphia Union would have went down 1-0, then I think for sure we would have seen Elsinho, and I don't think anybody wanted to see him coming in as a right wing back.
Yeah, I unpopular opinion, but I really think I don't know what the future holds, but I think this may be the end of should be probably the last year of Elsinho. I hope to keep him on. I think he would be a great coach in the academy. He's a great representative of the Union. He's a fan favorite, but I just think the gas is near the end, and hopefully we can keep him around. But as a player, I think it may be time to end that part of the relationship.
Yeah, no, I think I saw at the beginning of the season somebody asked Elsinho, is this it? And I think Elsinho responded on Instagram and said, yeah, he's retiring at the end of this contract. But, he spent most of the season injured, so maybe he wants to give it one more go. He doesn't want to go out this way. Only Elsinho will be able to let you know. But, Kyle, I believe you sat over in 136. You told me you were obviously the closest out of at least Ricky and I in the Sons of Ben section. What was the atmosphere like from the New York Red Bulls sitting in 136?
So I'll say this. They were, I got to give the Red Bull fans credit that actually showed up. They were loud, especially because we came out, I thought, as Sons of Ben, like probably the loudest I've heard in a long, long time. And I think by the time we got into extra frames, I don't know about the rest of you guys, I think we all, with it getting cold, and our voices were going, we were starting to get tired, and they kept going. Some of them, you could tell they were getting tired too. And then we started picking it up there. And obviously, once we scored, I mean, that was probably the longest dupe I've heard in ages. But they did a very good job. I give them credit. And from the fans I talked to, they were very cordial, good sports. So overall, they brought the energy, and I thought that's really what played up the atmosphere tonight in the stadium.
Yeah, that's a big part of it too. I mean, we saw against Club America. I mean, I still think that Club America atmosphere, it was very, very special, and it's gonna take a lot to top that. But yeah, that Duke goal song, and I mean, hearing that and watching the whole stadium just erupt, I mean, that was something special. And maybe that moment right there was louder than any of the moments against Club America when we took them on. And uh, yeah, I mean, I know a lot of people didn't want to sell tickets, didn't want to see a lot of New York Red Bull fans in the stadium, but those, at least myself, those are the atmospheres that I live to see. Just where a whole bunch of fans from the other team come in, like when Ricky and I went down to Atlanta. It was a little bit disappointing that only 10 Philadelphia Union fans were there, but to see the New York Red Bulls come with a lot of fans, and I'm losing my voice, it was an incredible atmosphere.
And that's the thing. I think that's something the MLS really needs to market is you see that in some other leagues is you need to have the other team there to have a stadium atmosphere. I don't know if you agree with that, Todd, but I think, and maybe I'm a little key with that, but it just really, I think when you have a full stadium of supporters from both sides, it just adds to the energy of the stadium. Both teams play off. It makes it a more exciting game.
Yeah, it does, and I mean, I have no problem seeing opposing fans in the stadium as long as there's not more opposing fans than actual fans in Philadelphia Union fans in Subaru Park.
Right.
I'm fine with that. I know everybody says, "Oh, Club America, there was more fans of them." Maybe, but majority of it looked like Philadelphia Union fans. I know that there was just a ton of sections of Club America fans where I think they had like 2, 3, maybe 4 sections completely sold out. But that atmosphere was special, and the atmosphere tonight against the New York Red Bulls was super duper special. But as you guys can tell, I'm definitely losing my voice. So I mean, just any points, Ricky, Michael, Kyle, that you guys want to bring up before we wrap this thing up?
Not really. I mean, it was just a great win, and we move on. And I think that's special in itself. And I think Jared said best, this is our first home semifinal. And I hope the energy is just as good next Sunday as it was tonight.
And we talked about it a little bit ago, Kyle. Out of Orlando or Nashville, who would you rather see?
So I've been thinking about this since I left the park. I would probably want to say Orlando just because I think our defense can hold their offense.
Agreed. I think all Philadelphia Union fans are probably in agreement with that, especially when Nashville were in second, I feel like, for most of the season. And their defense is hard to break down. We saw them when they came to Subaru Park when we played them. Only 1 goal scored, and Ricky brought up the point. They didn't even have Hani Mukhtar, the best player. So who knows what that's going to look like, because when we went down to Nashville, I believe we lost that game 3-0 when Mukhtar played. CJ Sampong, I believe, got a goal. And I know Subaru Park isn't down in Nashville, and we made Subaru Park into a fortress, but we haven't seen what Mukhtar can do in Subaru Park, so that does scare me a little bit. Michael, I saw that you unmuted yourself, so anything you want to bring up before we wrap it up?
Yeah, just a final point is we all, I think, have European clubs and watch them very closely as well, and get to see that great atmosphere, and to now witness that not only firsthand, but for our local club, our club that's our first in our hearts, is truly incredible. And I just, it's great to see. This is a really great community that's like a family, and I just can't wait for this to continue, because it really does feel like we're in a golden age of the Union right now.
It does. I mean, we can't take it for granted. We have to just live in the moment. And last season, we thought we had an amazing team with Brendan Aronson and Mark McKenzie, which we did. And you can argue which team was better last year's or this year's, but I hope fans just live in the moment, and we talked about how, man, we need another striker, and that's true, right? But let's enjoy the players that we have right now, and yeah, I know it's frustrating, it's annoying seeing Kasper Schmeichel miss yet again another chance. Corey Burke missed a chance. Sergio Santos misses a chance. But, Ricky, I believe you brought it up earlier. Maybe Daniel Gazdag. He seems like the type of player that can just go on a hot run and carry us along in the playoffs. But we all know that the Philadelphia Union aren't built offensively. They're built through the back with the two center backs, with Andre Blake. And if those guys and then the two fullbacks continue to play well, the Philadelphia Union are going to be such a hard team to break down, and we saw that tonight against the New York Red Bulls. Now, granted, they don't have the best attacking players, but the Philadelphia Union did enough to get the 1-0 victory against New York Red Bulls tonight. And Ricky, I see you're unmuted, so anything else you want to bring up before we go?
I'm just going to go with a too early 2022 MVP prediction. Daniel Gazdag, after a full offseason, gonna be in that top 3. I'm calling it now. I'm calling my shot. We get a striker. Gazdag feeds him. He's up for it.
For all of MLS or for
all of MLS? He's gonna be in that conversation.
That's
Todd's gonna take 3 pictures with him at team events, and he's gonna be in the MVP conversation.
That's a hot take right there. So
he has the talent. It really is. You said it a lot of times on your podcast, Todd, but you're 100% right. The amount of miles on his legs this year should really be noted. I think he's going to be. I'll back it up too. I think that's going to happen.
It took Hani Mukhtar.
And I also back it up.
3 people. Wow, there we go. You want to say Mukhtar, Ricky?
Yeah, I was talking about like Hani Mukhtar. It took him a full year to get acclimated. Gazdag came in a little bit weird time because, like, usually if you come in at the beginning of the season or mid-season, it takes a few weeks. It's a different league. It's a lot more physical than I think a lot of these players are used to. And they come over and they're getting pushed around. And they're like, oh, this is how MLS works. And it's like the same thing when teams go to CCL. It's like, oh, that's not a foul anymore. I forgot. So I think you give him. He'll have what 2-3 months off. He'll be able to, he'll come in. He'll have some time. It won't be as cold at the end of the season. There's a lot of opportunity there, and he doesn't have to worry about flying to Hungary and losing to England, stuff like that. So he has a good opportunity, especially, and this is my point here. If you go out and get that striker puts the ball into the net, unlike some of the strikers that we have. You have a good number 10. You have another good young number 10, and Aronson. Maybe Montero moves back to right midfield as a starter next year, and we give every opportunity to Gazdag as a 10. Jim, you listening?
Let's hope, right? Let's hope. But that pretty much wraps it up. Always a blast hopping on Twitter Spaces, seeing people listen in. Appreciate the support, and especially the people that say, yeah, I'm going to go ahead and talk, and saves me from destroying my voice, I feel like, even though that doesn't matter. But yeah, just everybody that joined in tonight, talked about tonight's game against the New York Red Bulls. For everybody that listened, thank you guys so much, and just the support you give myself on the podcast. And we're not here for my podcast; we're here for the Philadelphia Union, and it's the whole reason for Behind the Podcast is to talk about the Philadelphia Union because we've said it before, and I'll continue to say it. This team doesn't get credit on the radio in Philadelphia, and that's why there's a whole bunch of Philadelphia Union podcasts because we'll give the team, we'll give the players the credit, and we don't need the radio. So for people that were here again, Thank you guys for speaking. Thank you for being here tonight. And if you guys haven't checked out the podcast before, go ahead and check out the podcast, the Free Kick Podcast, wherever you get your podcast. Check out the Twitter account, which obviously all of you guys, that's how you join the Twitter Spaces, at Free Kick Pod. You can also find the podcast on Instagram and Facebook at Free Kick Pod. Check out the website. That's not a website, I believe, anymore, thefreekickpodcast.com. Got to pay for it. But again, thank you so much to everybody that joined, and we'll see you guys sometime this week coming up to preview either Nashville versus Orlando. Again, that game is Sunday at 5:30, and let's bring the atmosphere. Let's bring the sound. Let's make that stadium a lot more intense than it was tonight against the New York Red Bulls, because with that said, my name is Todd, and this is the Free Kick Podcast.